Good morning, and thank you for taking the time to join us for Vandas's webinar with our partner Horizon 3. At today's webinar, Kevin Bartlett, Senior Enterprise Account Executive at Horizon 3, will provide an overview of the Horizon 3 solution, and then Jay Shah, Senior Systems Engineer, will take a deeper dive into the platform Node Zero and provide us with a demonstration to show you how Node Zero can uncover the truly exploitable weaknesses in any organization's internal, external, and cloud infrastructures. Joining Kevin and Jay today is Ryan Young, Vandas's CTO, who will assist with questions. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat window and we'll either address them as we go or at the end of the session. We also have a few quick polling questions today that we hope you'll take part in. And another quick reminder to visit the Vandas website, vandas.com/events, for a list of other upcoming events you might be interested in. For those of you who are new to Vandas, Vandas specializes in optimizing and securing hybrid network infrastructures to achieve maximum value for our clients. With our proven process, anchored by our deep industry knowledge, we deliver solutions and successful outcomes, which cultivate strong connections and trust with our customers. For over 40 years, Vandas has delivered comprehensive strategies for secure IT infrastructures, and we have partnered with Horizon 3 so that our clients' security teams can conduct pen tests from different perspectives and fully assess their organization's security readiness and fix weaknesses before attackers can take advantage of them. By attending today's webinar and demo, you should walk away with an understanding of the benefits of autonomous pen testing and the value it can provide to your organization. And now it is my pleasure to turn it over to Kevin.
Thank you so much. Hope everybody's doing well today. My name is Kevin Bartlett. I'm a Senior Enterprise Account Executive here with Horizon 3. And for my section of today, just going to set the table of who Horizon 3 is, why we exist, some problems that we help solve. And then from there, I'll hand the mic over to Jay Shah, who will get into the technical aspects. So I know not everybody has heard of Horizon 3. So help kind of understand what we're doing, how we're doing it. Really quickly, at Horizon 3, we're on a mission to help organizations just like yours continuously find, fix, and verify weaknesses within your environment before attackers do. And we do this through utilizing autonomous pen testing. So if you don't remember anything else from today's conversation, and you will because there's a lot of fantastic content, the one thing I want you to remember is that vulnerability does not equal exploitability. And it's really, really important that we focus on that because in security environments, I think the number one thing security practitioners you have to do on a daily basis is the hardest decision is how do I decide what not to do because there's so much to do on a daily basis, so many detections, so many alerts, different policies, procedure, people, process, technology. How do you figure out what not to do? And the way that most organizations are doing that is with a risk-based approach. And understanding that risk equals the likelihood times the impact. How do we help you get to that risk-based approach by understanding the likelihood of something happening, and then when it happens is the impact? And one of this, I know everybody's on mute, so you can't answer. So somewhat of a rhetorical question, but we all know that today a pen test is the gold standard to assess the security of a network at any given point in time. So the question then arises, why are we not doing them more frequently? If it's the gold standard to understand the security of our network, why just once a year? Why maybe twice a year? And really the reason behind that is because the time, value, effort. Most of the time you're spending a few weeks to a month of preparing your SOW, getting access, running the test, then getting a report. That can be anywhere from a month and a half to 3 months time frame. Now, traditionally, you have your report. What do I then have to do? Research, do my fix actions, take me a few months to do those. And now I have to wait another year before I retest. That's why it's taking so long, is why Horizon 3 was founded. So our two co-founders, Snehal and Tony, Snehal came from industry, former CIO of GE Capital, CTO of Splunk. Where he met our other co-founder, Tony, was when he became the CTO of the Joint Special Operations Command Unit through our Department of Defense. Tony had spent 20 plus years as U.S. Special Forces, and he was the deputy CTO at the Joint Special Operations Command Unit. And again, the number one thing is, how do we decide what not to do, or how do we prioritize what to do? And the way that the challenge I ran into is, if we prioritize everything, we prioritize nothing. So having a 3-letter agency come in and run a pen test was the gold standard for them to help prioritize what to focus. Again, focus on exploitability, not just vulnerability. Now with that data, the team has their priorities. We need to harden and strengthen and create policies or around those exploitabilities. Now, once we fix those, they needed the ability to retest. And the time, money, resources to retest would have to wait a year. And that was the impetus of Horizon 3. So our heritage coming from the Department of Defense, many of our engineers are former US veterans, and quite a few of them are former nation state hackers. So now that Horizon 3 exists, where's that space that you can see the value from Horizon 3? So vulnerability does not equal exploitability. How do we decide what not to do with a risk-based approach? This here on the left-hand side, that security hardening hygiene, is the number one thing any organization can do, is understand and strengthen the basic blocking and tackling, right? That whole 80-20. If we spend our time on our controls, testing our tooling. One of the questions I'll normally ask here is, how often do you test tools? You've got your EDR, you've got your SIM, you've got your MDR, you've got your MFA, you've got your single sign-on. How often are you testing those tools? And most people, it's that once a year. Well, what if somebody changes a policy? Is it okay to wait a year to test that? And again, we're helping you on that continuous basis of finding, fixing, and verifying that proactive security approach before an attacker gains access. What you're going to see in Jay's presentation here is our find, fix, verify loop, because again, you have limited time, money, and resources. How do we create effectiveness and efficiency within your processes? And we do that through the find, fix, verify loop on that continuous basis. So we're going to help you find the exploitability within your environment. And Jay's going to go into detail how we do that. Now that's step one. Step two is you have to fix that. Traditionally with your pen test or even a vulnerability scanner, a lot of times you and your team might have to do the research based on the context of your environment. What does that fix look like? We're going to take a lot of that off your plate. We're going to give you screenshots and links of the specific fix action. So again, trying to help you be more effective and efficient. Now, once you've done the fix, it's not just done, and it has been in the past, but it should no longer be. At the top of our screen, you see the trust but verify, but the trust but is crossed out. And the reason for that is within the Horizon 3 platform, we give you the ability within a one click to verify that that patch took and it is no longer exploitable. So again, vulnerability does not equal exploitability. Let's use our offense to inform our defense and test our tooling. Let's help you be more efficient to help you decide what not to do with that risk-based approach. So from a high level, that's what we're doing here at Horizon 3. From here, I believe Joanne has a poll, if you all would be so kind to answer a few of the questions that she'd like to throw up there. And also, if you do have any questions throughout the session, please put them in chat and we'll address those for you. Thank you so much. Jay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kevin. Pass it over to Joanne. Did you want to mention anything there? Good to go.
Right. Individuals are taking the poll, and as the responses come in, I will give it just a minute, and then we can share some of the results. And so the polling questions, the first polling question for those of you who have not answered yet, how many times a year are you able to perform a pen test? And the responses are either never, once a year, 2 to 5 times a year, and more than 5 times a year. And I can tell you that 2 people have responded never. A good 67% of the individuals responding are responding about once a year, and about 20% are responding 2 to 5 times a year. And then the balance, no one is responding more than 5 times a year. So that I think is interesting and a great reason to be participating in today's event. And then the second polling question is, after a pen test, how do you ensure your applied fixes really fixed the issues and weaknesses? And so the first choice is we follow up immediately with another pen test, and that's 29% of the people on today's webinar. We wait until we can schedule our pen tester to come back, and that's almost 50%. It's 47%. And then several people have responded, or 24% have responded, we're not able to retest at this time. Again, these are all interesting responses, and we hope that when you finish today's webinar, you'll have an opportunity to change these answers one day. And I turn it back to you, Jay.
Thank you, John. Yeah, we expect those answers. Those are very typical. And so we like to start with is if you're patching once a week, once a month, you're only pen testing once a quarter. So there's really no way to verify. And so that's the big difference. Now, what I'm going to do is, again, thank you for the time. I'm going to dive right into it. We got a lot of information we're going to cover. Talk about Node Zero. Node Zero is an autonomous pen testing platform, as mentioned, which allows you to control and launch pen tests from inside your environment. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is our ease of use. So the platform is very simple to inject. We are agentless. I'm going to talk about that for just a minute, the architecture, and then we're going to dive into some of the great stuff here. We include both external and internal pen testing with the platform. So from an external pen test standpoint, you log into our web portal, create the attack, and then we would directly hit the external assets that we can see from our cloud environment. Nothing to deploy, nothing to do other than just give us some context information on how we can find your organization. Internal pen testing, where all the magic is, all the breaching that you hear about in the news, we do the same process in that we construct our attack rack in our cloud environment, and then we attack on the inside. For the inside attack, we are agentless, as mentioned, so there's nothing to deploy or install. However, we do need a stanchion or somewhere to launch the pen test from. This is akin to the pen tester walking with their laptop, plugging it in, and starting to do their work. We don't need a special laptop, nothing of that sort. We just need a place, like I said, to kick off the pen test. For us, that's Docker. So if you already have Docker in your environment, we can launch directly from those production hosts. Simple command, we'll download 2 containers and we can fire the attack. Now, most organizations, customers like to have a separate attack box outside of production. So you can build your own, which is just a standard Ubuntu Docker platform. Or we have a simple little OVA that you can deploy across the popular hypervisors that most customers actually have in their environment. Now, even if you don't have a physical hypervisor, you can also deploy on VirtualBox on a simple Intel-based laptop, which is exactly what I'm using for this demo. Again, you can see the requirements for that platform on the inside are very minimal, just a place for us to replicate or minion the commands that are coming out of that control platform that we spin up. Typically, 1 attacker is enough for the entire environment. Doesn't matter for attacking 5 IPs or 50,000 IPs. We just need the ability to route to those systems. In more complex environments where you might have remote sites, multiple segments walled off from each other, you can deploy attackers throughout the environment. We're not licensed by the number of attackers, we're licensed by the number of assets. So all of the systems, IP addresses that exist inside the environment is how we are licensed. That's the only licensing that we have, which is everything inclusive. So you take the total number of IP addresses or assets live, not ranges, but actual live assets on the inside. And that's the license count, if you will. Again, we are agentless, but built, or actually, I should say, licensed like an agent. So once every asset in your environment has licensing, you are allowed to run unlimited pen tests in that environment. Now, that's all that's required for the platform to deploy and launch production safe pen tests. And let me stress that we are production safe. I'll cover why we are and talk about some of those details. Attackers attack during the day or when the network is active. There's no value of running a pen test in the middle of the night when no hashes can be picked up. Now, with the platform, we do include, like I said, internal and external pen testing, as well as some other security operations, such as network enumeration. You can do a light discovery or an inventory of the network without actually attacking. An AD password audit. We can dump your domain controllers and show you which users are using the same password or easy to guess passwords. Password breaching is the absolute #1 way attackers are getting in. And so we really want to stress that passwords are super important, as well as password policies. When you talk about phishing in just a minute, I'm going to come back to that. It is a new feature of the platform, and we'll dive deeper into it. I do want to come down to the end days here because I want to mention a couple of things. Although we are an autonomous software platform that's running pen tests in your environment, we do have an attack team that is building the product. They're the ones putting in the attacks to the platform and working with end days. So we have engineers kind of in the field that are building the brand new attacks. You see some of this listing here, this Fortinet weakness that was discovered by an H3 engineer. You can go to our website and see some of the real cool things that our attackers do and give back to the attacking community. But just to let you know, we have a team that does that, and they're the ones that are making the product better and smarter every day. Top several pen testing platform companies out there, the gigantic firms that you know, all known the names of, they all use our platform. The reason I mention that is the feed we are getting from those people when they're running attacks in their environment. The platform has run over 45,000 pen tests since inception. So we have an incredible idea and a great feed from those red teams telling us exactly what we touch in production. If anything were to go wrong or things were hiccup, the attackers make the change immediately and the next pen test runs without an issue. Now, as I mentioned, 4 clicks away from production safe pen test, and those 4 click can of course be automated. That's it. You'll walk away and a full pen test report will be delivered to you. Because the platform is completely autonomous, there is no human involved except you, so there's no waiting for reporting. Now, while the pen test is running, again, you can go grab a cup of coffee or do whatever else you'd like. However, if you want to get to the nitty-gritty, you can obviously watch the pen test running. While the pen test is running, we're going to give you a real time of the feed, meaning the exact commands that Kermit in this case is issuing inside your network are listed here with timestamps. We do this for 2 reasons. It's also listed here as well as in the actual logs, because we want you to be able to take these commands and dive deeper. We are an infrastructure pen testing platform, so we're not going to go into the web apps. You may want to take that further with our commands if you're a red teamer yourself. The other thing we'll talk about is security validation. When we're issuing these commands on the inside, we want to make sure that your EDR or your perimeter systems are picking us up. We should be kicked off the network. Your systems like EDR should identify an attacker on the inside and should pull us off. The difference between being crypto lockered and caught for ransomware, a lot of times it's just a checkbox in your EDR platform. All of the software platforms are good. It's just a matter of a lot of times configuration. So we want to make sure that they're set up properly. Now, we are credless, agentless, so we don't want credentials in the environment. That's our job to find them. However, you can provide cred sets. So we can test for user escalation. Can John from finance with their regular ID be able to get admin privileges? Now, we don't like to feed fake credentials. You'll see what the platform can do as far as automation. We're going to find those creds. So rather than giving us fake credentials, we like real credentials. I'm going to talk about the phishing platform because you can see here that we actually inject in the platform those creds. I'm going to do for this demo here is I'm going to just jump into the platform and show you how easy that phishing pen test is to launch. I'm going to come back into the platform with more details. So I'm just going to kick this off real quick to kind of show you with just a couple of clicks, we can launch a pen test internally, which is also going to have the phishing attachment. So a couple things here in just those couple clicks. We've launched a pen test, which is now generating some custom code. This custom code can now be put into any of those popular web pages as you are very familiar with. So I'm going to pop open just a window here, and you can see they can be any web page that you want to host internally or externally, whether you use Google, whether you're using Microsoft, or even some other fake pages. I'm going to pull up the Office 365 or Okta because that's what most people are familiar with. And again, you can see that this is just like the standard page, but what we're actually doing is as you're typing information, we are collecting this cred set. The reason we do that is once you direct these people to your web page, whether that's an administrative email or using platforms like KnowBe4 and GoFish to send that email for you. As your users, someone like John in finance starts putting their information in cred sets here, we're going to tell them that it's illegal. But what's important is that we're actually injecting that particular cred set directly into the pen test. What that means is that the results of our pen test are 100% real, meaning regardless if we find a weakness in the network or a CVE, particularly that we can get into domain admin, we potentially could get into HR information. So our pen test results are going to show you which systems we're able to violate, again, whether they were CVEs or true weaknesses from patching, or maybe just John from finance gave us that cred set. Again, that is not a weakness or something that would be found normally from just a system patching. That is a training issue. And so we want to be able to make sure that attackers can't get in from the outside. So again, the phishing component is brand new, has been added to the platform, really giving that deeper vision into the environment. Now, once the pen test runs, we're going to give you quite a bit of information or data on the backside. I'll step through some of those results. Now, again, you don't have to be sitting in front of the system. And again, roughly 4 hours for a /24, the platform will run, ripping through your server environment, giving you all of the beautiful reports that you're accustomed to from a pen test standpoint. Again, 100% autonomous. You have access to run these as frequently as you want, daily, weekly, monthly. Now, when the pen test completes, again, full standard reporting that you would expect, multiple reports that we'll dive into later in the tech session here. That includes the C-suite reporting, just telling you high level what's broken, as well as the deep pen test reports. Now in the interface, again, we're going to spend more time in here. We show you exactly what's happening. Now let me be very clear. We are not a vulnerability scanner. We are an exploit management platform. And what we do is bring only the information that matters. So we don't report to you on just the garbage. We're going to show you exactly how we got into your systems with an active map that you can click on, showing you the systems we've used to actually stitch together the weakness to get in here. There's never a question with the platform. So unlike other platforms like vulnerability scanners, you have to root through and figure out what vulnerabilities truly matter to you. We are only showing, like Kevin mentioned, the exploitable vulnerabilities. And so we show you not only the exploits that were triggered, but the fact that we can see that data. So this is proof 100% that we were able to get into those systems. There is no argument from a security team versus IT anymore. We tell you that something's broken and you have to fix it. If anybody wants proof, again, the proof is listed right here, showing that we have read access or read-write access, depending. All of the reports are also co-brandable, so you can load your logos if you would like, if you just want to have that sort of effect. Now, in addition to telling you what's broken, this is part of that find, fix, verify cycle. We're going to understand what pieces are broken. And more importantly, we're going to show you the exposure that you have. And so in this particular example, we're looking at MDBTNS poisoning. I don't want to get into the technical details at the moment. We are going to show you how we launched, how we found a particular host in your environment, and then we exploited the weakness. A lot more detail about that weakness, but I want to focus on the fix actions. In the interface, we have direct step-by-step screenshots on how you need to go to that particular system and execute those things to fix them. So from there, you can use the in-interface fix actions, or it's all also printed out as a PDF. So you can generate a report and then just give that to someone to actually do the work for you. Maybe you don't actually have the resources or the time to do this. So you can obviously give this to a partner like Vandus, and they can provide you an SOW to have someone come in to resolve all the issues for you and take care of that. Now, in addition to providing those fix actions, we go above and beyond. And the reason for that is because we're actually breaching. We're true. We're not just guesstimating. If you look at this particular example, you see that the base score is a 7. Now that is that CVSS score that everybody attaches themselves to, which is not great as a 7, but the problem is it's actually wrong. And I'll explain why. Because we're breaching, we're looking into the environment, we're finding 34 other attack paths afterwards once we get in. Now, if we look at the downstream impacts of those attack paths, you'll see some of them led to domain compromise. What that means is that this 7, that is the guesstimation from a vulnerability scan standpoint, is completely wrong. Because we're able to get into domain admin, what we do in our interface is contextually lift the score of this weakness so that our weakness list is surgically crafted and you understand what is specifically broken in this environment that needs to be fixed and in the business priority because we're adjusting that score. We'll show you later in SMB, signing not required is a level 1 or criticality 1, which you may not even pay attention to. But in this environment, because we're able to breach and get into systems, we escalate it to a 10 because you need to fix it. And again, all of the weaknesses are always copied out with proof. So again, there's never a question if we actually breached or not. Now, this is that find, fix, verify loop we're talking about again. Once you've fixed using those fix action reports, you want to run that verify. And as you can hear from the poll, not many people have the ability to do that. So you're essentially left exposed for that duration until you run that pen test to really make sure those systems are secure. Now, you could run a full pen test across the environment, but if you had 50,000 assets and you're only able to fix 1 or 2 items, it doesn't make sense to run that long-running pen test. Maybe change control stopped you. Maybe you only had time over the weekend to do a couple items. What we can now do is just select the weaknesses that you chased after, again, using those fix action reports that we provide, so that we can run a tight pen test to validate those patches took and those systems are no longer weak. We've had customers deploy patching through software distribution, EDR platforms, and the patch fought with group policy because it was a 2-stage patch. Customer had no idea that they were still exposed because their EDR and software distribution platforms said they were protected, but until they ran another pen test, they realized that several systems did not accept the patch in full. So again, a very quick way with 1 click to validate the patching that you've put in, whether it's just a couple of weaknesses or maybe hundreds of weaknesses. Finally, with the platform, we include customer success. And what that means is not only is the platform very easy to use because it was designed for a junior IT person to be able to run, manage, and maintain and run those pen tests, but also you have access to these customer success people via chat directly from the interface, or more practically scheduling a review. You'll see their calendar, which is a dedicated customer success rep. So it's not a random team you're getting. You get a dedicated person who is backed by a team. That person knows your network, knows who you're working with. So you have that relationship. You can grab time on their calendar, set up a Zoom meeting, and you'll immediately get that invite. Again, all inclusive with the platform. Now, what I'm going to do is dive into a technical deep dive. We're going to go into a little bit more detail, but I want to go back into the interface and spin up a pen test, again, showing you how easy it is to launch that pen test. So with that said, we're going to click on Run Pen Test. I'm not going to step through all of the details here in the interest of time, but I want to give you an idea how you have ability to control the pen test. Again, you're in charge. So if we click on Internal Pen Test, this is the design period of creating that pen test. There's just a couple of boxes we're going to step through so you have an understanding of what kind of controls you have. Now, most all of it is already filled out. And if you click next, like a Windows application, we do a pretty decent pen test. I want to step through to give you some idea. Now, if you didn't know what you were hitting, let's say you had absolutely no idea what the network size was, you can go ahead and dump the private IP space in there. This is 3.4 billion IP addresses, quite a large range to run a pen test. For us, because again, we're using computers to do the magic for us, we can have the system run very, very quickly and through this. So roughly 5 weeks or so, maybe a little bit less to get through that environment. Again, 100% autonomous. The platform will do its thing and send you links for the reporting. We typically like more of a targeted attack. So rather than these wide angle attack approaches like /8s and /12s, we like to use /24 so we can work at a subnet directly. Now, again, you can chain multiple subnets together. Rather than typing all this, I'm just going to load up a template so that you can see here. And it's easier to kind of orchestrate. Now, I'm going to make this screen smaller just so that you can see 2 things. Number one is the templates can be created. You can have many templates. That allows you to have positional attacks, meaning you can run attack maybe once a month or once a quarter of your entire environment, hitting all of the IPs. You may have a more high value target items like SQL servers, database servers, things of the sort. For those, you may want to run a tighter pen test, maybe listing those IPs separately and running that pen test maybe once a week or even once a day to make sure those systems are secure if they're holding sensitive data. Exclusions. We are very specific on our exclusions. As mentioned, our red teamers are very good at making sure the pen tests run in production because we have that beautiful feed from the red teamers. Now, again, you may say there are certain systems you don't want to pen test and you can put those in our exclude. I do talk about production safe. I know many of you think that might be a little crazy, but because it's an autonomous pen test platform, you have the ability to start very small. You can just put 1 or 2 IPs, hit those systems in your test dev network just to make sure that everything's running fine. We don't knock anything over. And then you can go from there and add additional IP ranges. For us, the widest scope is the best because that allows us to stitch all kinds of different weaknesses, maybe getting in through a laptop, which then gets us into the data center. Last thing I'll mention here is the runner. We deploy the platform in an environment. So again, we are agentless. However, when you launch the pen test, you typically have to connect to the inside network to launch the attack. We can automate that process by making Kermit check in every minute. And that's what I'm doing here. So I've built a pen test and I'm sending that pen test to Kermit. So he'll download. And again, you'll see that in the actual attack. Now, if we click next, we do some open source intelligence work. If you're not familiar with this, to give a quick example of this, if Kermit's running an attack on the inside, you're running that pen test, and we come across a name, maybe my name, Jay Shah. I don't know as an attacker if Jay Shah works there. Is he an employee? Is he an administrator? Or is he just a regular user? When the attack is running, if we come across that piece of information, again, with no user ID, we can ask the attack rack. And again, the attack rack is spun up brand new for every single pen test. The attack rack can then go out to the internet to try to find if there's pwned passwords, comb through LinkedIn and Facebook, things like that, to figure out if maybe Jay Shah has this password out there that's pwned, or maybe we can guess a password. Again, we don't care where we're getting the information from. We just want to make sure nobody else can get into the environment. In order for us to do some of that external stitching to try to find people, we ask for some basic information like top-level domains, and then the way you do business in the internet so that we can kind of figure out from the web. We also do our massive rainbow tables. So as we look through domain user accounts, we're going to see if we can use random passwords or the most common passwords. But if you have specific passwords in your environment that you may have used, maybe system accounts or service accounts or startup passwords like a desktop 123 setup password, you could put those in here and we'll add those to the sprayer to ensure that none of your domain accounts or anybody is using those easy to guess or cheap passwords. Again, password breaching is the #1 problem, so we want to make sure that those policies are being followed. We give you some additional features here from an external standpoint, but I just want to enforce that these are just high level from a recon standpoint. We don't necessarily look at internal and on-prem being anything different. We just look at the attack coming from the outside, hitting external IPs, or the attack running from the inside, working on the internal address space. So whether this is on-prem in your physical data center, or it could be in a hosted facility, or this could be a cloud environment, Azure, GCP, AWS. For those, we deploy the attacker on the inside, and we do perspective attack, again, from the outside versus the inside. Now, if we click next, this is the attack panel. This is where the juicy bits are. Now, going to note that we are an exploit platform, and so we only deliver real results that we can get into, which means we're pulling the trigger on exploits. There are hundreds of exploits that we're pulling triggers on. So we find the situation and we see if we can get in. So for example, Log4Shell is one of those that you can't turn off. Very dangerous. We always check for it. There's nothing that can be done about it. There are other exploits that would potentially cause what I like to call drama. And that drama may be something like an anonymous printer attack. So although, again, production safe, it's checked off by default, we give you kind of a call out. So if it's in yellow or in red, we're going to let you know there might be some issue with it. The anonymous printer attack, great for us. Sometimes can even get domain admin from a printer. However, it may spit out a garbage page at the printer, maybe a couple, potentially even the whole ream. Again, blank paper, not a big deal in a corporate environment, but if you're hitting an industry that's check related or check numbers or specific Mylar paper, you want to be a little bit more sensitive to that. So you don't want to burn those check numbers. So for things like that, we've called that out with yellow or even little call boxes next to it telling you exactly what we're doing. So again, if you're very conservative, you can start with just 1 or 2 IP. You can then select or deselect all to start real small, let the pen test go through, allow yourself to be comfortable with the platform, and then grow the attack base, whether that's by IP or you can just become aggressive. Now, if we scroll down here, just to give you an idea, some more detail, you can see that blue keep, this is the way we actually do an attack where we're pulling the trigger on a blue screen. Again, no payload, so we're not going to do anything damaging, but you'll see that we'll be able to kick off that pen test, watch that system go down, and then guarantee you that that system is weak to the attack. Again, a simple reboot will fix that system, but that way we ensure you that the system is weak to the attack. If we click next, we give you some additional runtime options. Typically don't need to change those. We can click review. Now that's it. That is the total complication of building a custom pen test for any environment. At this point, we can save that template and then go ahead and run the pen test. You'll see here, if I click that pen test, a couple things start happening. Number one is that we are generating code in the platform to be able to launch the pen test. This brand new attack rack is being constructed right now, and you'll see that in this window, this unique link is a link directly to this brand new attack rack. We can go to the real-time view, and you're going to see some of that detail. As we're running the attack, the window starts filling up with those command sets here. Now that's it. Once the pen test completes, you can again just walk away, and you'll get an email saying that the pen test is done. If Kermit is behaving as an attacker, you can see that Kermit's already picked up the attack. So in that particular example, we built an attack and signaled Kermit to pick it up, which he's doing right here. And he's now waiting for the attack rack to spin up. Now, what I want to do is before we dive into the results, because that's where all the juicy bits are, we're going to take a look at what we're doing from a attack standpoint. It's really important to understand that we are breaching systems, and we can do lateral movement just like a pen tester does at the autonomous level. Best way I can explain this to you is looking at a customer example. Again, real data, I've redacted the information. Large financial technology company launched a pen test. Again, you're in control, you launch the pen test from the inside. After they did that, Node0 stood up and started doing that asset discovery of the scope that they had given us. And within that scope, we discovered about 2,000 assets. Node0 started enumerating those and discovered several of those ports were HP ILO. If you're not familiar with HP ILO, it's HP's remote management platform that us administrators can get in to build the server and do all kinds of things of the sort. Now, HP, Dell, IBM, or Lenovo, they all have their platforms. And it's great for us administrators, except it's kind of like an axe in glass. We break the glass, we use the axe, and we put it away rusty. In this case, we've been able to identify that that port is weak to an attack. So just like a vulnerability scanner, we are going to show that it's vulnerable. That is where we stop because Node0 trusts no one. As you see, trust is crossed out, Kevin mentioned. We're going to pivot and start immediately going into breach and start trying to hammer that card to bust it open. Couple things I want to note. Number one is we're not using random passwords here. We're using the ability to dump creds so that you can see exactly what we're doing. And we have got the card to dump the customer's cred set. So now we're in possession of the 22-character complicated password. We are no longer hacking. We are now just logging in. Just like an attacker, we're going to immediately try to do some lateral movement. So can we use that password somewhere else? We're going to hit a Windows machine. Yes, we can. We're in. For those you don't know, administrators love making the ILO password the same as the local Windows system account. Now note, this is not a vulnerability. Vulnerability scanners do not pick this up. We are picking this up because it's a misconfiguration because it's password reuse. And we only can find that because we're breaching the system. So because of that misconfiguration, we're able to get into the local file system. From there, we can mount that file system, take a look at what those user profile directories have. Again, should be secure, but in this case, if we're logging in as admin, we can see everything. At this point, we found user creds in there, AWS public and private key pair set. We're built in AWS, of course, so we understand that. So let's check if we have access from the inside to AWS. Yes, we do. We're going to breach the cloud. We continue to hammer the internal environment, and through an SMB weakness, we're able to get into Active Directory, which gave us domain admin creds, which means game over. Now, pretty bad that we were able to get into the environment in about 4 hours, so we could have completely taken this company if we wanted to. But what's worse is that it took a full hour for their network security system to actually trigger and someone to get a notification. Again, a full hour after the attack was complete. It doesn't matter what kind of software you have out there protecting. If it's not configured right, if you can't react fast enough, it's meaningless. And so we're also being used to sort of validate that security perimeter and make sure that the SOC, NOC, MSSPs, all of those different people and parts are doing their job. Are people getting notifications? Are we getting pulled off the network? Now, it's really cool if some of that stuff we do. Want to jump back into the interface because, again, as soon as the pen test completes, we are going to send you the link to the reporting. One quick thing before we dive into the reports, all of the data as we're attacking the environment, these are just dumb boxes, so they can be wiped immediately. Again, we just need that stanchion to launch that pen test. Once the data is pulled into the platform, we are then processing it through that cloud environment. Again, that custom built private VPC for just this attack. When the attack is complete, we extract it, dump it into your customer portal, and completely destroy this VPC off the planet. We don't want those creds. We don't want your creds. We don't want to have any of that data. It's dangerous. We don't like it. That entire process is locked up. There's nobody allowed, no humans to get into that. And is what maintains our SOC 2 Type 2 compliancy. So again, we're very secure. We have to be. Now, when the pen test completes, again, you're going to get that link saying it's done. We're going to dive into a sample report here. So very high level, a lot of information to cover here. I'm not going to cover it all, but I'm going to cover the important pieces. You can see here that we're full of kind of a high level, what's everything's broken. Before we dive into the interface though, maybe you're someone who just wants the actual details or the reporting. All of the reports are instantly available. Again, you're not waiting for people to generate reports. The system's pipeline and machines do all the work. So as soon as the pen test is done, you're going to be able to download and get into these reports. I'm going to pop open this report real quick. Here is the executive report. So you'll see very high level, things that are broken, pretty pictures for the C-suite, and again, can be co-brandable. A lot of the details are actually in the pen test report, and more importantly, an interface where I'm going to spend most of my time. But just note that all of the reports at a very high level are available here. We line up the weaknesses directly to the business impacts. And so if we go back to the main page here, you're going to see that we take the technical jargon, things that I care about, like Eternal Blue, and then really map it to the impacts of the business challenges that are actually hit by having these weaknesses in the environment. Your CEOs and people like that may not know what crack cred Eternal Blue is, but I can promise you they know what ransomware and domain compromise is. So if we click on domain compromise, just want to dive in here real quick, kind of show you some details. Number one, NodeZero is not lazy. We didn't have a rough night at the bar last night with our friends. We're always going to consistently, because we're working with machines, hit all of the IPs you give us and make sure we expose every path to domain admin or weaknesses in the environment. Again, not stopping after the first one and telling you come back in 18 months. I'm going to dive into the first one here to show you some of that interfacing. Again, high level of what the attack did from a summary standpoint, the narrative as NodeZero stepped across each system with the timestamps. We come down here, this is the real cool stuff, the attack graph that we generate. Again, we do this for every single breach, and it's also interactive. So as you click on these individual systems that we've hit to stitch together for this particular breach, you'll be able to see the commands that are executed and how we got there. Timestamps are also there, allowing you to correlate with your EDR to make sure that we were picked up. Cool thing here is, as you can see, the poisoner launched. We're able to find a user, AJ Smith in this case, trying to log in from a client.51, which we discovered earlier. So now you can see we're stitching that path together for the breach. Again, we redact the information in these reports because we don't want anybody to use them from a bad actor standpoint if you haven't gotten around to fixing the challenge. Here is that hash. And again, remember, we're using just a regular system on-prem or a VM in your environment. We understand that you don't have those NVIDIA crack boards, but we do have them in our environment, so we can send that right up to our crack rig and bust it open. But now we have a username and a clear text password. Not enough for us to report to you. Again, we're not a vulnerability scanner. Maybe the user changed their password. That is a meaningless crack for us until we can leverage it in your environment. And in order for us to do that, we need to be able to find a weakness to leverage this cred set too. We did find a domain controller earlier in the scan. We then also found an SMB weakness on that platform. So once we plug that SMB weakness with that cred set, you can see presto voila, we have full access to the platform, read, write, And in this case, because it's a domain controller, we're now telling you it's a domain compromise. So again, the business challenge, the path we took, and then most importantly, the proof. Our customers love this, again, because there's no argument of what we need to fix. Everything is prioritized, and this is the order you need to fix to reduce that business risk. Now, in addition to including all this, as I mentioned, you do get full customer success access, which you can schedule a review, part of the package. But let's take a look at the individual weaknesses on how we got in. These are the holes in the boat that we leverage to get into the platform. Now, I talked about MBTNS poison earlier. Again, not going to get into the technical detail here, but again, showing you exactly how we got in and making sure you understand the weakness and the contextual scoring. And that fix actions, I'm going to pull up right here very quickly, right in the interface. So no need to Google anything. We're going to tell you step by step on what to do, and in many cases with beautiful screenshots. We make our attackers write these. That's why they're the best in the industry, although they hate us for doing that. Now, if we look at those weaknesses, we're going to start working those weaknesses. So that find, fix, verify loop we talk about, you're going to find by running the attack, figure out what's broken in the environment, fix using those fix action reports to remediate each one of these systems, whether it's you or potentially Vandus doing that work for you. And then we want to verify. Again, we don't need to run a full attack. We can just select some of those individual issues very quickly here and then dump them into our one-click verify cart. At that point, once we check out, we can look at those issues. Maybe we didn't get to this one. And with just one click, build a custom pen test that is pulling in those weaknesses so that will automatically pull in all of the IP addresses. Again, no need to run that gigantic pen test, and I can send that attack right down to that same platform. Once I click run pen test, if we actually apply those fixes properly, these weaknesses will go away because we are no longer able to breach. Again, proof positive, making sure you understand what we are doing and how we're doing it. Finally, when you run these pen tests, you're going to get good at working that hygiene in the environment, kind of like a floss every night. Get rid of these 35, 48 high level ones. You're going to start working on the lower ones, the 1s and 2s. At that point, when you get into that cadence of once a month or even potentially once a week running pen tests, our customers have coined the phrase pen test Wednesdays after patch Tuesdays, because again, if systems are changing daily, weekly, or monthly, why are you only pen testing once a year? When you run these pen tests, the goal is for us to have a lot of those pen tests on that cadence of weekly so that you can load the prior pen test in. So maybe you're doing this weekly. I was able to fix those 5 issues using the fix actions reports over the weekend. However, because Patch Tuesday rolled through yesterday, I now have 26 additional new security issues to address in the environment. Again, working that floss to make sure we're addressing all of the issues in the environment. The goal for us is to have this cyber terrain map of the environment so we have an understanding. And the reason is our attackers constantly put in new attack content. You can see here on the little bell icon for brand new attack features. I'll scroll down to some of the real cool ones that we've had recently, like the ConnectWise. Again, as soon as it's out in the wild, or if our attackers directly write the attack for it, like you saw in the Fortinet one, it'll be put into the platform, meaning the next time you run that pen test in your environment, you're already protected. We do not have any versioning. The platform is built every single time, so you always get the latest and greatest. The other advantage of keeping the pen tests are if we do find a vulnerability or a CVE in the past that has no exploit today, maybe an attacker or one of our attackers comes up with an Endace to exploit that. That customer success manager attached to your account pumps that through the system. And if you had that particular CVE in an old pen test, we proactively reach out to you with a secure email saying, hey, we saw this weakness in an old pen test. We don't know if you fixed it, but we recommend you do because now there's an end day attack for it. Again, not only wrapping your network with our tool, but our people as well. Again, for us, the game is to get ahead of the end days. Now, that's the last thing I'll mention here is that we do have a proof of value. You can see the platform is super easy to inject. All you need is that Docker host, and that is our full production deployment. And so what we can do is offer a POV, proof of value. You can contact your Vandus representative, and we can work with us to set that up for you. We give you access to the platform. There are essentially no guardrails. You can run unlimited pen tests on unlimited number of IPs. So really get a flavor of the product in your environment so that you can take a look at the results before committing. And again, that's for us the best way to see the power of the product. With that said, I'll just throw a couple features up here on the screen. Some of the real cool things that we do, as I covered in this presentation. With that said, with a couple minutes left and questions I know that probably need to be answered, Joanne, I'll pass it back over to you for that. Again, thank you guys for the time.
All right, thank you so much. That was fantastic. I am going to actually pass it to Ryan for some remarks and to lead the Q&A. For anyone who may have any questions, please type them in the Q&A panel and we'll get to them. And now I'll turn it to Ryan.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks, Jay. Really appreciate it. So, you know, just kind of going over and reviewing what you have on the screen, as well as you know, what we talked about today. So, questions that I often get when I speak to customers. There's no compromising data kept in AWS, right? It all gets destroyed, and that's important because, you know, you want to continue to protect the customer. One of the interesting things that you brought up a lot is running in production. We've actually seen CVE scanners take out, you know, print spoolers in data centers, or, you know, affect Windows services. So it's really amazing that you guys can run a full-blown pen test on a customer environment without taking down production or compromising potential revenue streams for the customers. So that's really amazing. And you know, what's also amazing is, I mean, we talked about it a little bit today, but the end days testing. It's really cool that you guys have, you know, not only this platform, but you also have your own offensive team that's out there, not only working to better your platform, but also better your customers. So that's pretty fantastic. I don't see any questions, and I think mainly that's because you covered a lot there. Even the pre-canned questions I had set up for you, we've covered. But you know, constant verification is important in today's world. You know, I think one of the main things that we hear from customers is, oh, I don't need a platform like this because I have a pen tester that does 2 pen tests a year. And I think it's really important for everyone to realize that running pen tests constantly, essentially, is the only way to really protect your environment. Because looking at a point in time reference, you're not really going to be prepared for what's coming, as well as, you know, giving you the confidence that when you do have an actual pen test, that you're going to be in much better shape to protect and defend your environment with confidence, and knowing that all of your alerting and controls are also effective. So with that, and no questions, you know, Jay, Kevin, thank you very much. Really appreciate you jumping on and talking to the team today. And I definitely encourage everyone on the webinar, if you're interested, please reach out to the Vandas team, and we'll definitely get you set up with a proof of value so you can see the true power that Horizon 3 brings to the table.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you. Did someone just post a question? Nope, we just got a lovely thank you. So, so with that, again, on behalf of Ryan and myself and the rest of the Vandas team, we'd like to thank Kevin and Jay for their presentations and demonstration of the Node Zero platform. We'd also like to thank all of you for joining today's session. We hope you found the information insightful on how you can assess your organization's security readiness. For attending today, you will receive a copy of an IDC white paper sponsored by Horizon 3 called The Shortcomings of Traditional Penetration Tests and How Autonomous Pen Testing Can Address Them. You'll also receive a link to Vandas's interview of Snehal Antani, CEO of Horizon 3, which discusses why you simply can't afford not to pen test. And lastly, you can visit our website, vandas.com/events, for other events that you might be interested in. And we hope if you do have any additional questions, you could certainly contact us at info@vandas.com. And thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.